Oh, very nice. After I made the video of Chef Ranveer Brar's butter chicken, a lot of you guys said that I should check out your food lab, and today we're going to do so. We're going to see how he makes his butter chicken. If you are new, welcome to the channel. My name is James. I've been cooking for many years in the US, France, England, and Spain, and I have plenty of other recipes on my YouTube channel as well. And it is also getting a little cold in the house, as you can tell. In any case, if you do like this video today, then be sure to share, like, and subscribe. And if you do enjoy the content, then, well, be sure to check out the rest of my videos as well. Now, on to the video.
What's up, guys? संजोत कीर स्टाइल बटर चिकन रेसिपी आज फाइनली बना रहा हूँ मैं YFL पर। बटर चिकन मेरी फेवरेट रेसिपी है और मुझे बटर चिकन के कई सारे वेरिएशंस आते हैं बनाने के लिए। मैंने ट्राई भी किए हुए हैं कई अलग अलग जगहों पर ये जो रेसिपी है सबसे फेवरेट रेसिपी है मेरी। मेरे फ्रेंड्स, फैमिली, किसी को भी बटर चिकन खाना होता है तो मैं ये वाली रेसिपी स्पेशली बनाता हूँ एंड इट इज़ सुपर ईजी टू डू और बहुत ही माइंड ब्लोइंग और डिलिशियस बनती है। सो ड्यूरिंग दिस रेसिपी आई एम गोइंग टू टेल यू अ लॉट ऑफ टिप्स एंड ट्रिक्स। So let's cook up some Sanjyot Keer style delicious butter chicken.
Well, we've seen a few different types already, haven't we? We saw one with Jamie, which was a kind of butter chicken. It was in the title as kind of butter chicken. And then we saw Maddie make his version as well. And we've seen also Chef Ranveer Brar who made his, and that looked delicious. And I think this one will also be a good one. He's going to be using chicken breast today. You can use either one. Chicken breast, though, if you are going to be using it, just keep in mind that you need to cook it. You have to cook it perfectly. It's very easy to overcook chicken breast, especially if you're going to be making it for, say, tandoori chicken, biryani, other dishes, etc., etc. Okay, cumin powder, turmeric, fenugreek leaves. He's adding a lot of spices to the marinade for the chicken, like a lot of spices. This is good because that enhances the flavor, doesn't it? Alright, let's see how long he says to marinate this for, because with Jamie's chicken, he gave it less than 10 minutes, which he was in a rush, obviously, for making it for the video, but you want to marinate it for a little bit longer so the meat absorbs the flavors. Oh! And he's infusing the smoke now with the raw chicken. Oh, this is good. We saw in the last video that Chef Ranveer, he did it at the end. For those of you who don't know how to smoke food, there are several different ways that we use in the kitchen. We have hot and cold smoking. Hot smoking is when you have a heat element, or when you cook the food and you infuse the smoke at the same time. So you're infusing the smoke while cooking. The other method is cold smoking, and cold smoking is exactly the opposite. You are infusing the smoke into the protein, into the vegetables or whatnot, whatever you're smoking, without cooking. This is exactly what he's doing with the chicken. He is infusing the smoke while keeping it raw. And if you haven't tried smoked cheese before, I suggest that you try it. It's delicious.
बटर चिकन के लिए तंदूरी चिकन या टिक्का, उसकी मैरिनेशन सुपर क्विकली रेडी हो चुकी है। मैंने यहाँ पर चिकन ब्रेस्ट का इस्तेमाल किया है। आप थाइज यूज़ कर सकते हो, दोनों यूज़ कर सकते हो।
If you're not very good at cooking chicken breasts like perfectly and you need a little bit more flexibility, use some chicken thighs. It'll save you a headache instead of having some really tough and rubbery meat. Is better.
बहुत सारे लोगों को चिकन विद बोन पसंद आता है। सो इफ़ यू आर यूजिंग दैट, चिकन में अच्छे से इंसिजन्स बनाइए। मैरिनेशन सेम रहेगा, नो चेंज इन दैट। आई एम गोइंग टू मैरिनेट दिस फॉर हाफ एन आवर टू एन आवर। आपके पास अगर ज़्यादा टाइम है, ओवरनाइट 8 to 10 hours, तो वो करो ज़रूर मैरिनेट ज़्यादा टाइम के लिए। चिकन और ज़्यादा जूसी, टेंडर और फ्लेवरफुल बनेगा।
I would recommend at least minimum 4 or 5 hours. If you're in a real rush, obviously, you may not want to wait so many hours to cook this, but if you're going through the effort of making this marinade and cooking everything, from scratch, you might as well do it properly and have that extra flavor, because the longer that you let it marinate for, the longer that you allow the meat to marinate, the more flavor will be absorbed. And that means the more flavor that you're going to have with the dish.
मैंने इसी स्टेज पर, मैरिनेशन के स्टेज पर ही स्मोक कर दिया है चिकन को। उसका रीज़न ये है कि मुझे बटर चिकन में वो तंदूरी चिकन वाला फील चाहिए होता है, तो मैं पहले ही स्मोक कर देता हूँ। उससे सटल फ्लेवर आता है स्मोक का बटर चिकन में, और वो ओवर पावर नहीं करता है। सेकेंड ऑप्शन है कि आपको थोड़ा ज़्यादा फ्लेवर चाहिए तो आप ग्रिल करके चिकन को स्मोक कीजिए, तो थोड़ा ज़्यादा फ्लेवर आएगा। और आपके पास थर्ड ऑप्शन भी है कि बटर चिकन जब पूरा रेडी हो जाए तभी उसको स्मोक करिए, तो ज़्यादा स्मोक का फ्लेवर आता है। द चॉइस इज़ योर्स। आई गो विद द फर्स्ट वर्जन एंड ट्राई डूइंग दैट, इट टर्न्स आउट टू बी सुपर डिलिशियस। तो जब तक चिकन मैरिनेट करने के लिए रखा है, मैं फटाफट मखनी सॉस का प्रेपरेशन कर लेता हूँ।
So far it's looking very good. The methods are a little different than what we have seen from Chef Ranveer, but it looks very good. Cumin. Sauteing the onions, okay. And he's caramelizing the onions as well. See, this is where in the last video, Chef Ranveer said that he did not want to caramelize the onions. So we are seeing a few differences. There was an article that I read, and it was a good article too. If I can find it, I'll leave it for you guys to read. But they did a study on the amount of spices and herbs used per country by climate. And they found on average that countries that are in hotter, more humid climates, or at least hotter climates, tend to use on average more spices per dish than countries in, say, colder climates. Many spices and herbs have antimicrobial properties. So if I can find it, I will leave the article for you guys to read. It is quite interesting. Some food for thought. Oh, cashew nuts. Oh. This is also something that I mentioned in Mark's green curry video. They were also using the coriander root. And me, personally, I've never used it before. It's not something that you typically get with the coriander. I'm not saying it's not possible that we don't use it in the West. It's just something that's not, I would say, as common as just getting the normal stem and leaves. Okay. Alright, so he's going to be cooking this down and reducing it. So if you're making this recipe, like I said before, give yourself a little bit of time to allow everything to cook properly.
मखनी सॉस का फर्स्ट स्टेज कंप्लीट हो चुका है। अभी इसको ठंडा करके पीसना है। मुझे जब भी जल्दी होती है मैं 3-4 क्यूब आइस के डाल के पीस लेता हूँ, पर आप कोशिश करिए अवॉइड करने के लिए। इससे दो चीज़ें होंगी, एक तो आपका मिक्सर बचा रहेगा अगर ठंडा करके पीसोगे तो, और दूसरा जब भी कोई गर्म चीज़ को पीसो तो उसका कलर थोड़ा सा उड़ जाता है, तो अगर आप ठंडा करके पीसोगे तो कलर बहुत अच्छा आएगा मखनी सॉस का।
You can have problems with emulsifications. If the sauce is too hot, yes, you can, and or two, if the sauce is not hot enough. With this sauce though, since you're going to be adding more butter to it, I would add the butter when you're blending the sauce, because the butter is already emulsified, and that will help to emulsify the sauce further. It's easy. If you do split it, then there are ways of saving it, and I've shown that in some past videos, and I can explain that again in further videos, but there are ways of saving a split sauce.
मेरे मखनी सॉस के वर्जन में मैं खड़े मसाले ज़्यादा यूज़ नहीं करता हूँ, सिर्फ हरी इलायची और जीरा डालता हूँ। उसका रीज़न ये है कि लास्ट में मैं इसमें फ्रेश गरम मसाले की एक चुटकी डालता हूँ, जिससे बहुत अच्छा फ्लेवर आता है। और दूसरा ये होता है कि मैं इसमें होल कश्मीरी रेड चिलीज़ डालता हूँ। उससे क्या होता है, कलर बहुत अच्छा आता है, क्योंकि मैं आर्टिफिशियल कलर नहीं यूज़ करता हूँ मखनी ग्रेवी में, तो कलर बहुत अच्छा आता है और उतनी स्पाइसीनेस भी नहीं बढ़ता मखनी सॉस का। तो ज़रूर यूज़ कीजिए होल कश्मीरी रेड चिलीज़ अगर मेरा वाला वर्जन बना रहे हो तो। जब तक ये मिक्सचर अभी ठंडा हो रहा है तब तक मैं फटाफट से ग्रिल कर लेता हूँ चिकन को।
Now for the color, if you do lose a little bit of color, you can add more chili powder to it. But one thing to keep in mind is that you will also dilute the color of your sauce the more butter and or cream, if you add cream, but the more butter that you add to it. And also if you add any more water to it, you're going to be increasing the volume and diluting that color. Just cooked. That's exactly right, as his little notes say. If you are using chicken breast, you need to cook it perfectly. You can mark the chicken. You don't have to fully cook it because it will continuously cook. So if it's just a little underdone, it's okay if you have to add the chicken again later on at the end of the process, and if you're going to be cooking it longer at the end. If you overcook it at this stage, you messed up. It's still edible, but you're not going to have that same juicy texture. It's going to be more rubbery, and well, I don't like rubber chicken. Rubber chicken for me is not good.
तो चिकन को तो ग्रिल करके श्रेड कर लिया है मैंने फटाफट, एंड द चिकन बाय इटसेल्फ इज टेस्टिंग सो डिलिशियस. मैंने तवे पर ही ग्रिल किया है चिकन को, लेकिन पर्सनली मैं ओवन में बनाता हूँ जब भी बटर चिकन बनाता हूँ. 250 डिग्री पे 8-9 मिनट में 7-8 मिनट में फटाफट ग्रिल हो जाता है परफेक्टली एकदम, और प्रोसेस बहुत क्विक हो जाता है. तो अगर आपके पास ओवन है तो ज़रूर इस्तेमाल करो, नहीं है तो तवे पर तो बना ही सकते हो, बहुत अच्छा बनता है ऐसे भी. मखनी के जो इंग्रेडिएंट्स हमने कुक किए थे वो अभी ठंडे हो चुके हैं, तो इनको अभी फटाफट पीस लेते हैं अच्छे से, और फिर फाइनल जो स्टेज है बटर चिकन को साथ में असेंबली करने का और कुक करने का, वो बहुत ईजी प्रोसीजर है. फटाफट बटर चिकन रेडी हो जाएगा.
Oh, very nice. See, that is a very nice sauce. If you can get that consistency, that's what you want. If you have a Thermomix, as I've said in the past, you can make that sauce even smoother, because this sauce, you can still see that there are a few little ripples in the sauce. Of course, you still have to pass it and everything, but if you have a Thermomix, wow, the sauces that you can make with that, it's not feasible for the average house, but for the kitchen, it's perfect. Okay, he's heating butter and oil. If you're just going to be using butter, that's fine, but butter, the longer that you cook it, will start turning color. It will turn into beurre noisette, which is brown butter, and then if you cook it longer, it'll turn into beurre noir, which is black butter. And if you don't want that, then you can add a little bit of oil to help stop that process of caramelizing so quickly.
Don't know what you're thinking. It's like I'm sinking deep underwater. Maybe it's harder.
So he's adding more spices for the base. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's a little trick if you want to get the rest of the sauce out. You can also just scrape it out with the spatula, with the rubber spatula. It's another method, because if you add more water to it, it will, it will increase the volume of the sauce and it will make it runnier. The best thing is to have a sauce like this now, because at this point it's much easier to control the consistency once you already emulsified it and once you've passed it through the chinois. It's much easier to control the consistency. And it doesn't look like he's added as much butter as what we saw in the last video, but if you cook this, if you put this on high heat and let this like really rip on the burner, you can split it, and you don't want to do that at this stage. Anytime that your sauce reduces too much, you can add more water to it to thin it out. But one thing that you want to keep in mind, and I love making sauces because this is one of my favorite things to make. They're so easy to make. Some of them are not that easy, but there are endless varieties of sauces to make and endless amounts. If it's a little too thick, add a little bit of water to it. The more you reduce a liquid, the more you will concentrate the flavors. Keep in mind, the more liquid you add will dilute the flavors. Garam masala. Okay, you add a fenugreek at the end as well. See. And he's tasting his butter chicken as well. Now, in the last video, a lot of people told me in Indian cuisine, the old methods of cooking and for also religious purposes, they don't taste it when making it for various reasons. If you're going to be cooking for someone else and you want to make something tasty, a good tip is to taste whatever you're making to make sure that you have enough seasoning, salt, other spices or whatnot. This is something that we use in the kitchen or do in the kitchen all the time. We have to taste, because if something goes out to a client or to a guest and it's not the same as it was that went out to the guests previous, you can have a bit of an issue, especially if you're trying to gain, say, a Michelin star. You have to have that level of consistency. More butter and a little bit of cream.
You keep me wondering, is our love strong, just like a love song? Baby, it's haunting me. Don't know what you're thinking. It's like I'm sinking
Fresh coriander.
deep underwater. Maybe it's harder for me. Oh, harder for me.
Beautiful.
दिस इज़ हाउ यू मेक संजोत कीर स्टाइल बटर चिकन. बहुत ही डिलिशियस बना है और मेरे फ्रेंड्स और फैमिली को ये वाला वर्जन बहुत ज़्यादा पसंद है, तो आप भी ट्राई कीजिए अपने घर पे. बट टुडे आई वांट टू थैंक द मैन हु इन्वेंटेड दिस रेसिपी, श्री कुंदन लाल जी, अपने मोती महल रेस्टोरेंट में सालों पहले. व्हाट अ ब्रिलियंट आइडिया. हैट्स ऑफ टू दिस पर्सन जिन्होंने इतनी माइंड ब्लोइंग रेसिपी इन्वेंट की, और उनके आइडिया की वजह से आज पूरे दुनिया भर में लोग बटर चिकन एंजॉय करते हैं, और मेरी भी पर्सनल फेवरेट है. सो दिस इज़ माई वे ऑफ पेइंग ट्रिब्यूट टू हिम फॉर इन्वेंटिंग दिस ब्यूटिफुल रेसिपी. थैंक यू सो मच सर. प्रिपेयर दिस वर्जन एट योर होम. Enjoy this butter chicken. Have an amazing time with it. Cheers.
Well, I have to admit that recipe looked delicious. For me, both of them, the one that we reviewed last with Chef Ranveer Brar, also looked very delicious. Both of them looked delicious. The only thing to honestly see which one you like more would be to taste both side by side. It looked like an easy recipe, maybe a little more laborious than the last one that we reviewed. But in any case, guys, if you did want to try this recipe, then I would definitely suggest to check out his full recipe, or his full video with the recipe and everything, and try it at home. And if you made both, then let me know in the comments down below which one you prefer as well, because that way, you know, it's fun for me to see which one that you guys like more, because one thing is my opinion, but another thing is your opinion at home, making this as well from another perspective. But if you did like this, be sure to share, like, and subscribe. Check out the rest of my content. And if you do want to help support the channel, then join us on Patreon as well. If you do want to see another video, then click on this one here. Until next time, take care.